2 a.m. without a care in the world, completely oblivious to the dangers of the dark. I used to think paranoia was a choice, a mental weakness born out of watching too many movies. But after what happened last month, I don't think I'll ever sleep with the lights off again. It started on a Tuesday. I work as an independent IT contractor, which means I frequently get hired by liquidators to decommission old corporate hardware. Most of the time, it's mind-numbingly boring work, shredding old hard drives, sorting through bloated lithium batteries, and packing away ancient servers covered in a decade of dust. That afternoon, I was cleaning out the basement storage room of a logistics firm that had abruptly gone bankrupt overnight. The place was a ghost town. The employees had cleared out their desks in a massive hurry, leaving behind trash and personal items. In the far corner of the damp basement, tucked completely out of sight behind a stack of broken CRT monitors, I found a heavy metal lockbox. It wasn't locked. When I pried the lid open, I found a single external hard drive wrapped tightly in anti-static bubble wrap. It wasn't a standard consumer drive you buy at an electronics store. It was heavy, encased in thick, military-grade anodized aluminum. There were no brand names, no manufacturer logos, and no barcodes. The only identifying mark was a single, hand-scratched sequence of numbers on the side. 04-1, 4-09. Standard company policy dictated that all discovered media had to be logged, inventoried, and thrown straight into the industrial shredder. But my curiosity got the better of me. The casing looked expensive, and I figured if I couldn't access whatever data was on it, I could just wipe the partitions, reformat it, and use it as an extra backup drive for my gaming setup at home. It felt harmless. I slipped the heavy drive into the bottom of my backpack, finished my shift, and went home. When I got back to my apartment, I poured myself a cup of coffee and cleared off my desk. I pulled out an old secondary laptop, thankfully a machine I used strictly for tinkering that wasn't connected to my home Wi-Fi network, and plugged the drive in. The moment the USB cable snapped into the port, the LED light on the drive flickered a dull, solid amber. My laptop didn't recognize it as a standard mass storage device. No folders popped up. Instead, a command prompt window aggressively forced itself to the foreground, overriding my operating system. The screen went pitch black, replaced by a single line of stark white text that said,
"Critical error. Enter decryption key."
I tried running a few basic bypass protocols and command line overrides, but the encryption was completely airtight. It wasn't standard enterprise security. It looked like a custom multi-layered cryptographic wrapper. Realizing I didn't have the tools or the patience to crack it, I figured it was a dud. I unplugged the USB cable, tossed the heavy metal drive into my desk drawer beneath a tangled pile of old HDMI cables, and forgot all about it. That was my first mistake. Thinking nothing of it was the catalyst for everything that followed. The changes started subtly a couple of days later. On Thursday night, around 11 p.m., I was sitting out on my balcony having a cigarette. My apartment faces a relatively quiet two-lane residential street. As I looked down, I noticed a clean silver sedan idling near the curb directly across from my building. Its headlights were completely turned off, but I could hear the faint, low rumble of the engine running. I watched it for about 10 minutes. Nobody got out of the vehicle. Nobody moved inside. Eventually, it slowly rolled away into the night. I brushed it off. I figured it was just an Uber driver waiting for a passenger or someone checking their phone. But the next morning, as I walked to the subway station to catch my train to work, the exact same silver sedan was parked a block away. This time, as I walked past, I caught a glimpse of the driver through the front windshield. He was wearing a plain gray baseball cap and staring straight ahead, completely motionless. His head didn't turn as I passed, but I felt a chilling sensation in my chest, an absolute certainty that his eyes were tracking me through the glass. By Friday afternoon, the paranoia morphed into cold, hard reality. I began receiving messages from unknown, completely spoofed numbers. They weren't standard spam or phishing links trying to steal my credit card info. They were strings of alphanumeric code interspersed with highly specific timestamps that aligned perfectly with my daily routine. 7:14, transit. 8:02, coffee purchase. 17:45, entered residence. They knew exactly where I was. My stomach dropped into a bottomless pit. I blocked the numbers immediately, but within minutes, a new spoofed number would take its place, sending the updated coordinates of my location. Then came the emails. My inbox began filling up with dozens of empty messages sent from encrypted mail servers. Each email contained a single attachment, a heavily distorted, low-resolution image file. When I downloaded one out of sheer morbid curiosity and adjusted the contrast, the blood drained completely from my face. It was a photograph of me, a photograph taken from a high angle, looking down at me while I was sitting on my balcony having a cigarette 2 nights prior. The harassment jumped from digital to physical on Saturday morning. I went down to the lobby to check my physical mailbox. Amidst the usual flyers and utility bills was a plain, unmarked white envelope. There was no stamp, no return address, and my name wasn't written on the front. It had been hand-delivered. Inside was a single, crisp sheet of white paper with a single printed line. Return the asset. The window is closing. That night, at exactly 3:14 a.m., my phone buzzed violently on the nightstand. The caller ID read, "Restricted." With a shaking hand, I answered it and pressed the phone to my ear, too terrified to speak first. There was no human voice on the other end. There was only the heavy, rhythmic sound of someone breathing slowly, followed by a metallic, synthetic clicking noise. The eerie sound of raw data being transmitted, much like an old dial-up modem or a number station. I slammed the phone down, ripped the battery out of the casing, and threw it across the room. I couldn't take it anymore. I knew exactly what this was about. It wasn't a random coincidence, and it wasn't a prank. It was that damn military hard drive sitting in my desk drawer. I didn't know what kind of horrific secrets were locked inside that encrypted aluminum shell, whether it held classified government intelligence, illicit deep web marketplaces, or devastating corporate espionage. And frankly, I didn't care. Keeping it was a death sentence. On Sunday morning, operating entirely on pure adrenaline and sheer terror, I dug the drive out from under the cables. I didn't bother putting it in a bag. I just shoved it deep into my jacket pocket and gripped it tight. The moment I stepped out of my apartment building, I spotted a black SUV idling across the street with heavily tinted windows. I didn't run. I didn't hide. I looked straight at the vehicle, made sure they saw me, and started walking. I walked 3 miles across the city to the old industrial canal on the outer edge of the district. The area was completely abandoned on a Sunday morning, surrounded by rusted fences and overgrown weeds. I stood in the middle of a concrete pedestrian bridge, looking down into the deep, murky, toxic water below. I pulled the heavy aluminum drive from my pocket. My hands were shaking so violently I almost dropped it. I held it over the edge of the railing for a split second, half expecting a hand to grab my shoulder or a voice to command me to stop. When the silence remained unbroken, I opened my fingers. The drive fell through the air, hitting the water with a dull, heavy splash. It sank instantly into the black abyss, disappearing beneath the sludge. The walk back to my apartment was the longest, most agonizing walk of my life. I fully expected to be ambushed at any corner, forced into the back of a van, or to find my apartment completely ransacked and turned inside out. But when I finally unlocked my door, everything was exactly as I had left it. And just like that, the nightmare ended. The stalker texts stopped instantly. The weird emails vanished from my inbox. No more unmarked envelopes appeared in my mailbox, and the strange idling cars that had plagued my street disappeared disappeared as if they had never existed in the first place. It's been a little over a month now. On paper, my life has completely returned to normal, but mentally, I am completely ruined. Every time a car slows down near me on the sidewalk, my heart rate spikes to dangerous levels. Every time I receive an email from an unrecognized sender, my hands begin to shake. I still don't know who those people were, what kind of data was trapped on that drive, or how they managed to track my every move with such terrifying precision. All I know is that there are dark, hidden corners of the world that ordinary people are never meant to see. And if you ever accidentally stumble across one of them, you better get rid of it before it consumes you.